The video you are about to watch is from an old woodworking magazine that I published during the years of 2003 to approximately 2006. This was a very unique magazine. It was purely video content and it was distributed on DVDs. The magazine ran for approximately 3.5 years, and then due to financial concerns, we simply had to terminate the magazine. We moved on to other things over the last roughly 15 years. However, there has been a request to resurrect this content, so I've gone through the trouble to get the equipment, the products, everything I needed in order to bring this content back to life to share with everyone. Here on this YouTube channel, we'll be putting up approximately 100 to 120 of the original stories that appeared in that magazine. The magazine was called Woodworking at Home Magazine, and it was truly one of a kind in the world. I really hope you enjoy these videos, and please tell your friends about them. In recent years, there has been an explosive growth in the use of biscuits in woodworking joinery. Now, one of the problems that comes up that some woodworkers have experienced, myself included, is you'll glue up a top or a carcass or some other project, and after it's been finished and a few months later, you'll notice a faint outline of the biscuit. Many woodworkers use the term telegraphing. They claim that the biscuit is telegraphing itself up to the surface of the wood. Well, I can understand that phrase, telegraphing up to the surface, but I want to know a little bit more as to what's actually causing it, but more importantly, how I can prevent it. So we've put together a little bit of research here, and we've found some interesting results. Take a look, you won't be disappointed. For our test sample, I'm going to be using 3/4 inch thick silver maple. I'll go ahead and rip 2 strips out of the same board that are 1.5 inches wide. For biscuits, I'm going to use 2 number 20 biscuits located in about 5 inches from each end of the board. And now with the biscuit slots cut in our test sample, what I want to do is place the biscuits that I'll be using for assembly inside the slots, and then I'll check for moisture content directly over that area. That way I'm not getting any variations due to the different species of wood. Using this high accuracy moisture meter, I'm going to take 3 measurements on the sample board. Once over this biscuit location, over the area between the 2 biscuits, and then over the top of the other biscuit location. What I want to do is record our starting moisture content at those 3 locations. With the measurements taken, now I'll go ahead and glue these 2 samples together and clamp them up until they dry. The directions on the glue suggest that we allow it to dry for 30 minutes before removing the clamps. However, I'm going to let it sit for 2 hours, then I'll remove the clamps. Now that the glue's had a chance to dry for 2 hours, I'll go ahead like I would with any project and plane or sand the board to thickness. Now in this case, I'm going to run it through the planer so that I have a nice smooth surface to make all of my future measurements off of. Using the same moisture meter again, I'll drag it across the surface of the board, and you'll notice that right now it's at 12.6. It's coming down, down, 9.7 at the center of the board where there was no biscuit. Over the other biscuit, it shoots back up to 12.5. And as we come down toward the end of the board, it drops down again. So that tells me there's an awful lot of moisture in this board at the locations where these biscuits are. So what I'll do is I'll record these moisture readings at these 3 locations over the next few days. And what I want to do is monitor it until the moisture content goes back to its original starting point. This is one of several different test samples that we've put together to find out more about this telegraphing biscuit problem. Now what we want to do is look at this mechanically and dimensionally to see what's changed in those localized areas over the biscuits, so that we can further understand how they can telegraph their position up to the surface of the wood. So we'll start out by first, without destructive testing, look at some of the aspects of this board. I've placed a straight edge on top of the board. And now I'm taking a high intensity light and I'm moving it along the edge where the board meets up with the scale. And notice in the center area right here, we can see the light pass through. That area is right over the top of where one of the biscuits is located. Notice near the edges of the board, no light can pass under. So that tells me that we have a recess in that area. Here you can see one of the test samples that we've cut in half, right over the area where the biscuit is located. Now what I want to do is measure it at this point, and at this point, to see if there's any difference in these areas. So I'll start out at the far edge, and we come up at 690 thousandths. Up near the center, we're at 685 thousandths. Back out near the other edge, it's back to 690 thousandths of an inch. Using this precision machinist dial indicator, I can accurately measure how much deformation there is on this surface. Out near the end, I'll zero out the indicator, and we're at 0 on the indicator. We'll come over to the middle, right over the area by the biscuit, and we're showing 6 thousandths of an inch deformation. Now we'll come back out to the other end, and it's back to 0. So I've got a 6 thousandths of an inch deep valley right over the area where that biscuit is. So what I actually believe we have is not the biscuit telegraphing its presence to the surface, but rather a recess at the surface of the wood that is in the same shape as a biscuit. Well, as you can clearly see, the area by the biscuits is definitely dimensionally different. There is a concave area in that location. Now you might be wondering, gee, how can that be concave, hollowed out, as opposed to convex or raised up over the biscuit? The biscuit swells up when it takes on moisture, and so should the wood. Well, that's true, but if you follow certain processes in a certain way, I think you'll clearly see how we'll end up with those concave areas. Now, we've charted out the moisture content of our sample pieces over a course of time. And generally these are 8-hour segments. Now when we start out with our sample, we started out at 9%. We then glued the two pieces together, clamped them together for a couple of hours, and you saw it shoot way up to almost 12.5% moisture content. And then we monitored it every 8 hours over the course of the next several days. And notice there's a very slow progression of that moisture content while it finally works its way back down to its original starting value. Well, if you remember back, what we did, going back to the beginning of the chart, we started out at 9% moisture content, added the glue and biscuits, clamped it together for 2 hours, and took out the clamps, and then planed the board flat. At that point, the board was at a very high moisture content in the area right over the biscuits. So at that point, that area of the wood should have been swelled up to its maximum amount. We then planed it, or in some cases, people would sand it flat, and that would flatten out the board, removing the raised area. Then as time goes on, and of course this would be a great variable depending on the moisture or relative humidity in your area, the moisture content slowly goes back out and normalizes. Now that could be days, weeks, or months. In our test research that we've done, it's taken up to as much as 11 days for that moisture content to normalize. But during that time, of course, moisture's leaving the wood, and the wood would have a tendency to shrink back down. And that's the effect of what we're seeing right now. Now that we understand what's actually going on that causes this telegraphing of the biscuit, how can we avoid having that problem occur in our projects? Well, I think there's 2 ways you can go about it. Do your glue ups and then wait long enough where you think all the moisture's left the wood and everything's normalized, or pick up a moisture meter and monitor the evaporation rate or the reduction in moisture content in the wood, and wait until you know it's low enough before you start sanding it flat and putting your final finish on the project. That wraps up this segment of A Closer Look. Thanks for watching.
I sincerely hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you truly enjoyed it, please help us share this information with the rest of the communities. Please hit the subscribe button, give us a big thumbs up, and be sure to tell your friends about this channel. Thanks again for watching.